Aum Sairam. Hara Hara Shankara, Jaya Jaya Shankara. Episode 33. Shri Mahaswami, the Sage with Eyes of Light, the Diary of a Seeker of Truth. Dr.Serge Demetrian. Dear devotees, now we shall listen to the second section of part 2 of this divine book under the subtitle The Lotus Pond. Karveti Nagar, Thursday, 23rd September 1971. Speaking through gestures. Yesterday evening, Sri Mahaswami did not perform his puja on the side of the reservoir. However, after my arrival at the hermitage, I found that the spiritual atmosphere around was dense to be cut by a knife. I discovered the reason only after a complete tour of the lotus pond and several pradakshinas round the hut. He was officiating inside. I had the permission to meditate for almost 30 minutes in front of the woven bamboo wall behind which Ishvara was talking with himself and with the universe he had himself created. The darkness was almost total when Ishvara, concealed behind the aspect of a frail aged person, came out of the room, but only to return inside straight away and sit on the coconut strings of his bed of rough wood. The door stayed open. A group of visitors belonging to the caste of the Brahmins did not seem this time modest and learned as it is prescribed by the noble ancient rules. They crowded together at the same time, noisily invaded the little room and pressed Sri Mahaswami with the most ordinary demands and questions. I made a point of honor to remain outside, looking at him across the door. I could, however, slip in for a prostration. Sri Mahaswami, who does not miss anything, asked his assistants 3 times, pointing his finger towards me. Who is there? No doubt, the intention was to indirectly tell me that he had observed me and that something might happen. Indeed, suddenly all the visitors left as if a single person. He kept me then alone a few minutes in front of him. That night at the mill was quite restful. By morning, I was in a disposition of spiritual expectation. However, at the hermitage, during the first 2 hours, I could see Sri Mahaswami just for a short second. I felt his presence only during the pradakshina before my departure. While leaving, I had a long talk with 2 intellectuals, teachers at the local high school. They complained about the bad administration and the extensive poverty, but without acting, everything stopped at talk and good intentions. By evening, at the reservoir, I had undergone for 1 hour a very strenuous time. Sri Mahaswami, who was in his period of silence, sat outside and communicated through gestures with 7 or 8 pandits round him. A professional mime would not have done better. I looked at him without feeling anything, similar to a wooden statue. This happens to me but rarely. However, it was an indubitable experience for which I bear witness. As if Sri Mahaswami wanted to show me that the incapacity and the capacity to feel his presence both came from him. Finally, he took pity of me. He caused the visitors to depart, retired in his hut, and offered me a grand darshan. A large oil night lamp in the room gave off a bright light. He was in one of his rare moments of gaiety, as he sat on the side of his bed in such a way I could easily see him. He cheerfully spoke, this time with a loud voice, with a single interlocutor. His dangling right foot drew, in rhythm with his discourse, complicated arabesques on the yellow straw mat. As is his wont, Swamiji spoke with his entire body, especially with his head and the play of his hands with those slender and mobile fingers that accompanied, enlarged, stressed with appropriate gestures, almost every word of the talk. His skin was brilliant as hot copper. I had rarely seen him so beautiful. Without the white down of hairs that made his face a head look older, he could easily have been an adolescent engaging a friend of his age in happy chatter. I stood all the time outside the door frame. After 15 minutes, totally composed, I felt that I should leave. I accepted it without regret. A long prostration, the normal adoration while kneeling with the hands in Anjali, and departure. I had to understand he wanted to show me how the uneasiness experienced at the beginning was fleeting and the good feeling that came hereafter was also fleeting, as the reality is beyond the transitory. Karveti Nagar, Sunday, 26th September 1971. The two peaks of these last days. These last days, it was impossible to write, as if paralyzed by a certain will. The wonders that happened, were they not worth to be noted down? Apparently not. The two peaks of these last days still remained in my memory, and here is the essential. The positive and clinical conviction that Sri Mahaswami and the Queen Kamakshi are in total unity. Then the proof, if one was still needed, Sri Mahaswami had decided to teach me how to arrive at the Purusha. As I had still some doubts on their identity, in order to clear them, these last days I proposed to meditate on Sri Mahaswami, to see him, to experience him inwardly under the form of the great goddess appearing as Kamakshi. The success has been spectacular. I felt indubitably with the precision of a scientific observation that he and the goddess are one and that the goddess is the entire universe. I lived the crystal clear conviction that Sri Mahaswami is the entire universe. These last days, any call addressed by me to him and to the goddess were followed by their rapid appearance. Both have been almost constantly near me. I foolishly left their sweetness only when I allowed myself to be cheated by suffering, that is, I had to pay for I do not know what old sin. The second event was the immersion of Sri Mahaswami in me in an unusual way. I had several times a strong feeling of having come out of my body. I was simply nestled in his palms as a pale yellow silken ball, like a one-day spring chicken without feathers. Then he entrusted this frail creature to the care of someone and entered in order to protect me in my old body, deprived as it was of its content, deserted by the blood, the vigor, the life, void like an empty glass coffin. In these conditions, the return in the old body was less difficult in the presence of Sri Mahaswami. To start with, during the first few minutes, the body did not answer to my orders. Doubtless, I had to retake charge of it, but I could not direct it. For some time, I was a living dead person. Indeed, the my or the I was so different from the bodily structure left behind. This structure could have fallen. I usually meditate standing, but it was as if someone supported this foreign structure and stopped it from sagging, as if the body stood all the time in the palm of a gigantic powerful and good being that did not allow it to fall. It is true that the last trace of the automatic mind in charge of the unconscious activities of the noiseless life of the billions of cells of the human body would be able to maintain the balance. A person can it not talk or write without being conscious of its body. What I could express up to now serves as an introduction to the meditation peak that follows. The last 2 mornings, I devoted myself to long meditations at the hermitage in the presence of Sri Mahaswami while he was in Anushtana. The laborious preparation of my body seemed to have rendered it capable to receive a more important blessing that was to come. In addition, yesterday night, I witnessed one of the most impressive nocturnal offices or rituals of Sri Mahaswami on the last step of the reservoir. He had become the magician of the fire, and he bestowed upon me a certain stability in the experience of the infinite. No doubt, it was near the inexpressible, non-dualistic truth, Advaita. Let us try to put in words what really happened. Sri Mahaswami accomplished 4 times his energetic movements in all the directions of the space instead of the customary single series. In doing so, he encircled me, pushed me, and then split me as if with an immense axe lengthwise into 2 halves with his hands in Anjali. It was an unusual movement, rapid and perfectly vertical. After this, he cut me all over with the tip of his fine fingers extended in a long blade, invisible but extremely efficacious. Then Swamiji took me and offered me several times to someone towards the east. He sent appeals out in all the directions of the space while pinching the air as if he would have plucked fruits or flowers. This was followed by quick circles round himself, and finally he pleaded my cause this eloquent and vivacious gestures. I was invited to come nearer and did so by entering the water up to the knees. Sri Mahaswami, under the pretext of spreading flowers, kumkum and rice, was in fact throwing in the waters an immensely concentrated force. I felt with my legs a current that was flashing in unison with each of his gestures. Finally, with both hands, which seemed to contain a perceptible material, he poured in the lake a cataract of force that was quite distinctive. This power, added to his previous work, had separated the Purusha from the strata of the body and of the mind. I clearly felt a little sun in my chest. The office had just finished, but Sri Mahaswami performed still a few circles with his danda just towards the south where I was standing and not towards east as was customary. Then he stood in meditation, holding his danda with both hands, and once again looked towards south. Lastly, he sat down, still facing me, and I perceived a continuous current of radiant and transparent force. This spiritual wind made it possible that I could become detached totally and without any effort of the interdependent quintuple sheaths, that is kosha. I became a bluish ethereal vapor. A hint of individuality still lingered, a tenuous relic dragged along somewhere at the edge. It is doubtless that the interior ether is exactly the same as the exterior one. The world was as if constituted entirely out of ether, on which there were sketched very superficially all the objects and beings which together form the universe. Then Sri Mahaswami ordered, I do not know to whom, perhaps to the bluish ethereal vapor that felt happy in the empty shell of the individuality that I had acquired to become denser. I observed that the breath came to a stop, and that which was diffuse had shrunken in a single area, luminous and profound, an area of brightness similar to a tube about 40 centimeters long, not very large, situated on the center of this old body. From the periphery of this tube emanated obscure impulses that generated thought or thought matters. All the bodies and the world around seem to be the products at the periphery of this profound tube of stable light. Then, a more advanced degree of density led to the birth, in the middle of the above mentioned tube, of an ultra-luminous point that moved from up to down and created the image of a Shivalinga made of spatika. This form, at the beginning of no more than a few centimeters in height and about 1 centimeter in diameter, soon stretched over the length of the old body and became approximately 15 centimeter diameter thick. It stood in front or maybe in the place of the spine. The bodily structures had become so hazy that they did not allow for a more precise location to be identified. Only the blinding brightness of the center existed for a few seconds, along with the consciousness of its own existence. No more was there an interior ethereal bluish cloud, nor was there the exterior world of vaporous ether, nor names of objects, nor images of objects. Nothing, only blinding brightness of the consciousness aware of its own existence. Then this also disappeared. The consciousness that had split itself into two in order to become aware of its own existence dissolved into itself, its double, and only consciousness remained, unique. For how long a time and where? As time and space are produced by consciousness, it is from consciousness that these two ideas arose again, along with the consciousness of I, and endowed with a vague capacity for perception, which was a very faint reflection of the consciousness mother. From this point onwards, a quite rapid involution started. The following appeared in succession: the tube of central light, minute at the beginning, then large, emitting its obscure pulsation, the cloud of the interior ether, then that of the exterior ether, that is, the world, with the superficial sketches of the objects and beings that compose the universe. Farther, still lower, there came to birth the stony limits of the individuality, mind, body complex. My physical eyes opened, and Sri Mahaswami came into focus. In all the time of my meditation, he was sitting in front of me. These verses came by themselves in this mind. Through the grace of Ishvara alone, the desire for non-duality arises in wise men to save them from the great fear of transmigration. Devotees, we shall continue to listen to the lotus pond in the coming episode, bowing at the holy feet of the Gurus. Aum Sairam. Hara Hara Shankara, Jaya Jaya Shankara.